Welcome to the online portal of Delhi Law Academy. I am Professor Madan, and in this session, we will study the law of confessions as enacted by the Indian Evidence Act and as interpreted by the Privy Council and the Supreme Court of India. The first question we set out to answer is, what is a confession? What is meant by a confession? The problem lies in the fact that the word confession has not been defined either in the Evidence Act or in any other enactment. For our purpose, we will take up the definition given by Lord Atkin in Pakala Narayan Swamy versus King Emperor in 1939. In this judgment, Lord Atkin gave a widely accepted definition of the word confession. First, we will see what constitutes a confession, and thereafter we will see what does not constitute a confession. A confession must either admit in terms the offense or at any rate admit substantially all the facts which constitute the offense. This part of the definition is in two parts: a statement in which the offense is admitted in terms as it is by name. Such a statement is a confession. Or if in the statement the offense is not admitted in terms or by name, but all the ingredients of the offense, all the facts which constitute the offense have been substantially admitted, that also will amount to a confession. We can understand this concept through an example. A is accused of causing grievous hurt to B. A makes a statement, I struck B with a tangi and hurt him. This statement amounts to an admission by A of an offense. A has admitted that he caused hurt to B. So this amounts to an admission by A of an offense. But the question before us is whether it amounts to confession or not. Answer to this question will depend on whether there was only this much statement or there was something else to the statement. So precisely, this statement amounts to a confession if A does not add any more words to this statement to bring his case within one of the recognized exceptions. However, if he add words to this statement in an attempt to bring his case under any of the exceptions, then though it remains an admission, it does not become a confession. So now we come to the second part of the question, what does not constitute a confession? An admission of a gravely incriminating fact, even a conclusively incriminating fact, is not of itself a confession. So just because an incriminating fact has been admitted, even if the admitted fact is conclusively incriminating, even then it will not amount to a confession. Let's see an example. An accused makes an admission that he is the owner of and was in recent possession of the knife or revolver which caused a death, with no explanation of any other man's possession. Whether such admission is confession? That is the question, and answer is a statement that contains self-exculpatory matter cannot amount to confession if the exculpatory statement is of some fact which, if true, would negative the offense alleged to be confessed. We have a clear decision from the Supreme Court in Central Bureau of Investigation versus V.C. Shukla in the year 1998 as to what is a confession. And the answer by the Supreme Court is simple and direct. Only voluntary and direct acknowledgement of a guilt is confession. There should be no ifs and buts. So there should be direct acknowledgement of the guilt and it should be voluntary. That is what is to be termed as a confession. So confession is a species of admission. A confession is evidence against the maker of it unless its admissibility is excluded by some provision of law. Just as an admission is an evidence against the maker of the admission because of section 21 of the Evidence Act, confession is also an evidence against the maker of it, simply because confession is nothing but an admission. However, certain confessions are excluded from the purview of section 21, and it will be now our venture to find out what are those situations, what are those confessions which are excluded from the purview of section 21. The law relating to confessions is to be found generally in sections 24 to 30 of the Evidence Act and sections 162 and 164 of CRPC. We now take up section 24 of the Evidence Act, which excludes one category of confessions from the purview of section 21. Section 24 says, a confession made by an accused person is irrelevant in a criminal proceeding in the following situation. And if a confession is irrelevant, then section 21 will not be applicable. It cannot be proved and it cannot be used as evidence against the maker of it. So section 24 lays down one situation where a confession will be irrelevant. A confession cannot be used as evidence against the maker of it. Let us see what that situation is. A confession will be irrelevant if the confession was caused by an inducement, threat, or promise. So, a confession which was caused by inducement, threat, or promise will be irrelevant, will not be an evidence against the maker of it. But not all confessions caused by all types of inducements, threats, or promises. The inducement, threat, or promise should be of a special type. And what are the characteristics of that inducement, threat, or promise? These characteristics are as follows. Number one, the ITP, the inducement, threat, or promise, should have a reference to the charge against the accused. The ITP should proceed from a person in authority. And thirdly, the ITP should be sufficient to give the accused person reasonable grounds for supposing that by making it he would gain an advantage or avoid an evil of a temporal nature relating to the proceedings against him. So the ITP should relate to the proceedings and the ITP should proceed from a person in authority and it should be of the kind which would cause the accused person to believe, to suppose that he would gain an advantage in the proceedings which are initiated against him. This is the kind of ITP which is covered by section 24. And if a confession is caused by this type of ITP, by this kind of ITP, then only it will become irrelevant. All other confessions caused by other types of ITPs will remain relevant because of section 21. This particular type of confession is taken out of the purview of 21 through the force of section 24. The second category of confessions which are excluded are contained in section 25. A confession made to a police officer shall not be proved as against a person accused of any offence. Any and every confession made to a police officer at whatever time, under whatever circumstances, whether in custody, whether without custody, whether before FIR, whether after FIR. It's very clear, no qualification here. Every confession made to a police officer shall not be proved as against the person accused of any offense. So it's an absolute ban without any qualifications. Then comes section 26, which talks about confessions made in custody of police. Section 26 says a confession made by a person in custody of a police officer shall not be proved as against such person unless the confession is made in immediate presence of a magistrate. So all types of confessions made in custody of a police officer are excluded except those confessions which are made in immediate presence of a magistrate. So this is the third category of confessions which is excluded from section 21. Section 27, which next follows, is in the form of an exception, in the form of a provision. And it says that when a fact is discovered in consequence of information received from an accused person in custody of a police officer, that part of such information which relates distinctly to the fact discovered may be proved. So this is an exception to the ban which was earlier imposed by sections 25 and 26, and even when the confession is made in custody of a police officer, a part of that confession will become relevant and can be proved. What part? That will be clear when we analyze the provisions of section 27 in greater detail. So now let us make an analysis of the legal provisions relating to confessions. Sections 24, 25, 26 and 27. First, section 24. As we saw earlier, section 24 excludes confessions caused by certain inducements, threats and promises. Let us note it very carefully that confessions caused by any and every type of inducement, threat and promise is not excluded. Only those confessions which are caused by certain inducements, threats and promises are excluded. And what types of inducements, threats and promises? That is clearly laid down in section 24. There are three characteristics to those inducements, threats and promises which will exclude the confession from section 21. The terms of section 25 are imperative. As far as section 25 is concerned, its terms are imperative. A confession made to a police officer under any circumstances is not admissible in evidence against the accused. Under any circumstances. It covers a confession made when the accused was free, when he was not even an accused, that is also covered, and when he was not in police custody. It also will cover a confession which was made before any investigation had begun. The expression accused of any offense covers a person accused of an offense at the trial, whether or not he was accused of the offense when he made the confession. So this qualification, accused of any offense, does not relate to the point of time when the confession was made. Rather, it relates to the point of time when it is sought to be used. So it is not necessary that at the time of making the confession, the person who is making the confession was accused of any offense. Even if he was not accused of any offense, even at that time, whatever confession was made by him to a police officer will not be admissible subsequently when he becomes accused. So the ban under section 25 is absolute. As for section 26, it prohibits proof against any person of a confession made by him in the custody of a police officer unless it is made in the immediate presence of a magistrate. This is a partial ban. as contrasted with section 25, it is a partial ban. It relates to a confession made to a person other than a police officer. Because as far as a police officer is concerned, that case is squarely covered by section 25. So in section 26, we are talking about those confessions which are made to a person other than a police officer. But the precondition is that the person is in custody of a police officer. So any confession made in the custody of a police officer, but not to a police officer, but to somebody else, let's say a doctor or a friend or somebody else. Such confession made in the custody of a police officer, but to a person other than a police officer, is covered by section 26, and it will also be irrelevant unless the confession is made in the presence of a magistrate. Section 26 does not qualify the absolute ban imposed by section 25 on a confession made to a police officer. So as far as section 25 is concerned, it's absolute. Section 26 is partial and covers situations other than those covered by section 25. And lastly, section 27. It is in the form of a proviso and partially lifts the ban imposed by the previous sections 24, 25 and 26.